Hi guys, my name is Gui. I'm a member of 19DTA2A. As you all know, today I'm here to present to you about my trial teaching. My trial teaching is divided into three parts. Firstly, warm up. Secondly, lead-in, and finally, pre-teaching. And now, we move on to the first session.
In the first session, we played a game called Lucky Star Game. We have the following rules. In class, we divide into two teams. Every team will have one response, and each correct answer will be awarded a point. When someone responds, teams around them are not permitted to provide suggestions, and I will give the gift to the squad with the highest scoring after the game. Okay, let's play. That's all I have to say about warm up. Now we move on to the second part, leading. Before beginning the new lesson, I will ask students questions about the lesson's title. For instance, here are two questions. 1. What is urbanization? 2. What are the causes of urbanization? I would like to invite a student to answer the questions. After the students have completed answering, we will begin a new lesson. Now we go on to the last sessions. I will have three main sessions in this part. The first is vocabulary, the second is activities, and the last is homework. Let's look now at vocabulary. Here are the vocabulary words. They include word type, description, definition, audio, illustration, and lastly an example for each word. The student will listen to the audio twice for each word.
Trend, trend,
And after the students have finished writing the vocabulary, we will advise that all of the students read the vocabulary. Then I want to invite each group to read once. Finally, I would like to ask a few students to read. After that, we go on to the activity. I ask students to open their books to page 25. During the first exercise, I would instruct students to carefully read the question and invite a few students to respond based on their knowledge. That permits them to predict ideas in the next listening. And I'm gonna go into exercise 2. Listen to a talk about urbanization. Choose the best title for it and choose best option to complete your sentence. There are six questions here, and students will listen to the audios, try to find and choose the proper answer. After listening, we'll have a few students read their response, and then we'll correct and explain each word. Now we move on to extra exercise. Extra exercise. Watch the video and choose the correct answer.
Today, more than half of all people in the world live in an urban area. By mid-century, this will increase to 70%. But as recently as 100 years ago, only 2 out of 10 people lived in a city, and before that, it was even less. How have we reached such a high degree of urbanization, and what does it mean for our future? In the earliest days of human history, humans were hunter-gatherers, often moving from place to place in search of food. But about 10,000 years ago, our ancestors began to learn the secrets of selective breeding and early agricultural techniques. For the first time, people could raise food rather than search for it, and this led to the development of semi-permanent villages for the first time in history. Why only semi-permanent, you might ask? Well, at first the villages still had to relocate every few years as the soil became depleted. It was only with the advent of techniques like irrigation and soil tilling about 5,000 years ago that people could rely on a steady and long-term supply of food, making permanent settlements possible. And with the food surpluses that these techniques produced, it was no longer necessary for everyone to farm. This allowed the development of other specialized trades and, by extension, cities. With cities now producing surplus food as well as tools, crafts, and other goods, there was now the possibility of commerce and interaction over longer distances. And as trade flourished, so did technologies that facilitated it, like carts, ships, roads, and ports. Of course, these things required even more labor to build and maintain, so more people were drawn from the countryside to the cities as more jobs and opportunities became available. If you think modern cities are overcrowded, you may be surprised to learn that some cities in 2000 BC had population densities nearly twice as high as that of Shanghai or Calcutta. One reason for this was that transportation was not widely available, so everything had to be within walking distance, including the few sources of clean water that existed then. And the land area of the city was further restricted by the need for walls to defend against attacks. The Roman Empire was able to develop infrastructure to overcome these limitations. But other than that, modern cities as we know them didn't really get their start until the Industrial Revolution, when new technology deployed on a mass scale allowed cities to expand and integrate further, establishing police, fire, and sanitation departments, as well as road networks and later electricity distribution. So what is the future of cities? Global population is currently more than 7 billion and is predicted to top out around 10 billion. Most of this growth will occur in the urban areas of the world's poorest countries. So how will cities need to change to accommodate this growth? First, the world will need to seek ways to provide adequate food, sanitation, and education for all people. Second, growth will need to happen in a way that does not damage the land that provides us with the goods and services that support the human population. Food production might move to vertical farms and skyscrapers, rooftop gardens, or vacant lots in city centers, while power will increasingly come from multiple sources of renewable energy. Instead of single-family homes, more residences will be built vertically. We may see buildings that contain everything that people need for their daily life, as well as smaller, self-sufficient cities focused on local and sustainable production. The future of cities is diverse, malleable, and creative, no longer built around a single industry, but reflecting an increasingly connected and global world.
Okay, there are 5 questions here, and students will watch the video twice to find and choose the correct answer. After watching, we will have a few students read the response, and then we'll correct and explain each one. And the final is work in groups. in which we will divide into 6 groups to discuss the agreement or disagreement that the listening exercise above evaluated. Before we finish the lesson, we will assign homework to the students and teach them on how to prepare for the following lesson. That brings us to the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening.